Um, Good morning, everyone. I'm Dr. Jackie Taylor, and I'm the Executive Director for the Center for Research on People of Color. And it's our distinct pleasure to have the wonderful Dr. Beverly Malone as our speaker today for the Anti-Racism Speaker Series. She needs no introduction, truly, but I'm going to go ahead and just give you a snippet of just some of the things that she has done to be such an influential nurse scientist, innovator, leader, and all the other accolades, mentor, friend, and advocate to all of us in nursing and beyond. Well, of course, Dr. Malone, she is the president and CEO of the National League for Nursing. And under her leadership, the National League for Nursing has advanced the science of nursing education by promoting greater collaboration among stakeholders, increasing diversity in nursing and nursing education, and advancing excellence in patient care for patients. Dr. Malone's distinguished career has mixed policy, education, administration, and clinical practice, including as Federal Deputy Assistant Secretary for Health under President Bill Clinton. As a reviewer, she contributed to the groundbreaking IOM report, The Future of Nursing, Leading Change and Advancing Health, and served on the Minority Health Federal Advisory Committee. She serves on the Kaiser Family Foundation Board of Directors and the Institute for Health Improvement Board of Directors, and has received more than 20 honorary doctorates. In 2022, Dr. Malone was honored by the American Nurses Association with the prestigious President's Award. Dr. Malone was also named one of the 50 most influential clinical executives by Modern Healthcare. She was featured as one of 25 outstanding women for Women's Health History Month by Diverse Issues in Health Education. And Dr. Malone was honored as part of the 2022 status list, the most definitive accounting of leaders and influencers in the life sciences, as well as one of 12 influential persons in health, science, and innovation by Morehouse School of Medicine. And she was included in Health Tech's list of 30 healthcare IT influencers worth a follow in 2022. In 2021, Modern Healthcare honored her with a Top 25 Women's Leader Luminary Award, named her to the inaugural list of 5 minority healthcare luminaries, and included her amongst the 100 most influential people in healthcare. She was previously honored on their list of Top 25 Women in Healthcare. And additionally, the International Society of Psychiatric Mental Health Nurses honored her with the Living Legends Award. Similarly, in 2020, Dr. Malone was ranked number 5 in Modern Healthcare's top 100 most influential people, received the University of Cincinnati's Linda Bates Parker Legend Award, named an honorary member of the Philippine Nurses Association of America, and presented with a special award of distinction by the NLN Board of Governors. Also, she was bestowed the Gail L. Warden Leadership Excellence Award by the National Center for Healthcare Leadership, and designated by the American Academy of Nursing with their highest honor, Living Legend. The Alpha Omega chapter of Sigma Theta Tau and the College of Nursing of Adelphi University, Long Island, honored Dr. Malone with the Lifetime Achievement Award in 2019. She was presented with a citation from the American Psychological Association for her outstanding leadership in advancing excellence in healthcare for the nation and global community, was named one of the top 25 minority executives in healthcare by Modern Healthcare magazine, and accepted the Nursing Outlook Excellence in Research Award in 2018. Elected 2 terms as president of the American Nurses Association, representing 180,000 nurses, and served as the first U.S. and African American General Secretary of the United Kingdom Royal College of Nursing, representing 400,000 nurses. A member of the UK, as well as U.S. delegation to the World Health Assembly, she was also vice chair of the Brussels-based European Federation of Nurses Association. Furthermore, she has the distinguished honor of her portrait being displayed at the National Portrait Gallery in London, UK. So all of that to say, and I could keep going on and on and on of all of her accolades. It is truly our honor and pleasure that she has made the time to speak with us today on Courageous Conversations with Self and the Other. And I will now turn it over to Dr. Malone. Thank you again for being with us.
Thank you, Jackie, for that extensive introduction. Only my mother would have full appreciation for it. I have to admit, colleagues, that I'll speak with you today, but one of the lessons that I've learned is that you don't go anywhere by yourself. So Dr. Elaine Larson is on the call today, and the way that I got that wonderful research award from Nursing Outlook was by collaborating with my colleague, Dr. Elaine Larson. So I recommend that as you move your scientist background forward and your journey, you connect with some of the greatest people. And Elaine Larson stands in my mind as one of those great researchers. The other piece is that I have a very special relationship with Dr. Jacqueline Taylor, in that I'm one of her admirers. I mean, you know, I'm part of her fan club. So knowing when she interviewed for a fellowship with the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, that she just bowled over the entire team of examiners and selection. I mean, we were so impressed. So what do you learn about? What did I learn? I learned that you have an obligation as a nurse, as a nurse of color, as a nurse scientist, as a nurse, to align yourself with those who believe and who are prepared to make nursing and healthcare move forward. Why? Because we serve the people. Because that's who we are. That's what we do. We will serve the people. I recommend to all of you, just live long enough and you will have those kind of accolades like me. I mean, you just put one foot in front of the other and you hang around long enough and they kind of accumulate. So, and hang out with the right people. That's the other thing. So let me begin at this point my presentation and start with saying I also have to acknowledge my chair of my board, the National League for Nursing Board, and that's Dr. Kathleen Poindexter. And I always put her name in the air because I know somebody somewhere is going to get back to her and say, Bev Malone was speaking, and she did mention your name. So, you know, you always take care of your people you report to. The topic that I chose was, and you guys allowed me to choose it, was Courageous Conversations with Self and Others. And I believe you're going to have a conversation. You know, I'm a psych nurse, so you have to take that into account. And so sometimes conversations with self are called hallucinations. And I am not encouraging you to hallucinate, but I am encouraging you to have that dialogue with yourself about who you are, where you want to go. And it's called that the attempt to be as honest as you possibly can be with yourself and with others. So how does one do that? Well, you start with something of a mission statement, with a North Star. You have to have something to aiming for. You have to have something that makes the world sit right for you. And so you start with a mission statement, an understanding of my goal is to get there, and I may have to get there a number of times. I don't believe that once I get there, I can put my hands around it and hold it. I need to then push on because that North Star keeps moving out in front of me. The NLN's North Star is promoting excellence in nursing education to build a strong and diverse nursing workforce, to advance the health of the nation and the global community. So this is like the guide that, you know, these are, talk about the handrails that hold the organization that I am committed to working with and to leading with, in cooperation with all the colleagues who allow me to lead. This is where we're going, and it's about promoting excellence. And what is it? It's in nursing education. Okay, and who is it for? To build a strong, not just a strong, a diverse nursing workforce. And then what are we going to do? Because when I arrived in my organization, it stopped there. It was a nurse educator, and that's all we do. We prepare nurses. But unless we build that linkage and that bridge to the clinical, to the reality of outcomes in the community of what people are going to live, how they're going to live, the social determinants of health. Well, so we then put to advance the health of the nation. The only way one does that is by connecting to the clinic. It's about connecting the whole of nursing. It's understanding that the research, yes, there's an academic nature to it, but it has to also have some reality-based outcomes to it. And the sooner we can get it into usage and operation of people's lives, the more important it can become. Not that there isn't room for just building literature and research and knowledge, of course. And others may use that to do something that will improve and affect the lives of others. But we as nurses, we have a special love for improving lives. So the statement, the mission statement was reading, promoting excellence in nursing education, to build a strong and diverse nursing workforce, to advance the health of the nation. And it stopped there. So one of the things I was able to do is to convince my colleagues that shouldn't we say something about the global community? I mean, you know, it's not just us. And they said, oh, it's implicit. Anytime someone says to you something is implicit, your ears should burn, and theirs should too, because if it's not stated, it's not being acknowledged, it's not being funded, it's not being made to happen. So I convinced my colleagues to put and the global community. So it reads now, promoting excellence in nursing education, to build a strong and diverse nursing workforce, to advance the health of the nation and the global community. So this is like my North Star. I may get lost at times, but I know where it is. I may get off the road. I may get distracted. I may have, well, it used to be I may have some babies. That usually took some time off from the focus, but I don't have to worry about that now. You get old enough, you won't have to. So it's about having a goal, having a vision, having a star, having something to aim for. And I hope each and every one of you do, because nursing is so powerful in that way. I never worry about when I get up in the morning, what am I supposed to do? I know what I'm supposed to do. I am an extraordinary psychiatric mental health nurse who also happens to be a clinical psychologist. I love clinical. I love therapy. You know, this is my love, but I also love administration. There are a lot of things I love, but I know more about who I am now than I used to. And I have an appreciation for it. You've got to get there. If you haven't said nice things to yourself lately, I recommend it highly. And you say, but I may not mean it. Fake it till you mean it. Just say the nice things. You'll be so surprised how much better you feel, because we tend to spend our time with people tearing us down sometimes. And we even have some colleagues who do that on a regular basis. I've never understood that, how you could consider someone who tears you down as your friend or your colleague. But I was having lunch with a nurse on a unit. I was consulting to the unit, and she said, we talk about everybody on the unit. I mean, everybody talks about everybody else. And I said, oh, they do. She said, and they talk about me. And I said, and you go to lunch with them? Oh, she said, yeah, of course. I said, I don't get it. She said, if I didn't, they really wouldn't like me. I said, darling, let me explain to you. If people talk about you, they don't like you. You have nothing to lose. There is absolutely nothing to lose. So put people around you, colleagues, who support you. You not in a way that's unreasonable support. Oh, anything you say goes. No. Support can be also someone saying, Bev, you're stepping in the wrong direction. That can be support. So you need some honesty with it. So there are 4 core values that underpin the NLN mission statement. Those 4 core values are caring, integrity, diversity and inclusion, and excellence. So I'm going to give you the definitions of those. Caring, first of all, it's simply promoting health, healing, and hope in response to the human condition. It doesn't get better than that. And these you don't have to take down. They're on our website, so you can easily find them if you want to. But most of the country has figured out we need a health system, not an illness system, I think. Most of the time I think this. And then there's the piece about healing. I think nurses are healers. And you can be a researcher all day long, but I believe nurses are healers. And that part of research is a healing outcome that we're looking for. So I see us as healers. If my poor parents had not come over on some, as I understand it, rather despicable kind of conveyance called a ship, where the slaves were stacked on top of one another, I would be in somebody's village running around talking about, I'm your village healer. I'm your village healer, because that's who I am. I know I am a healer. Then, and hope. And I think hope is a big part of nursing, of being successful, that don't let people take away your hope. That, and we should not, patients should not come to an interaction with us and for us to say, oh my goodness, did you bring any hope with you? We need some hope here. Does a family member have some hope? No, 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 no. We're nurses. We should carry a self-generating mechanism of hope with us all the time. So we've got plenty to share with our colleagues and our patients. Hope in response to the human condition. Understanding that we are all human and none of us are perfect. The second core value is integrity. And you know, the elections just occurred and we could use a real dose of integrity, respecting the dignity of and moral wholeness of every person without condition or limitation. And there was a psychologist who talked about unconditional regard. And really, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about that doesn't matter who you are, I'm going to provide the best care I can possibly. Now, maybe Jackie can give a bit better care to this particular person than Beverly Malone. And so I want to move over and say, Jackie, please take that on. That's just not my favorite patient. But I know myself enough to know where my weaknesses are and where my strengths are. So I can give the best care. Now, if Jackie's not around and it's just Beverly Malone and the patient that I would really rather not deal with, I got to pull up my pants and say, okay, are you a nurse or not? Give the best possible care I can. Even better, because I know I'm working against some of my own biases, my own prejudices about this particular type of patient. When you know yourself, you can implement a strategy to manage yourself. When you don't know yourself, you don't even think about a strategy to manage yourself. You think you're perfect. You think you're okay. And only to find out that we have these unconscious biases and limitations. The third core value is a twosome. It used to be just diversity. But you know, I figured out you can have diversity, 1 potato, 2 potato, 3 potato, 4, baked potato, sweet potato, you know, it could be, but it's the inclusion piece of diversity that makes the difference. The question is, when you look at a system, where is all the diversity? Oh, it's at the lowest level of the system. Is that what we're aiming for? Is that our North Star? Well, absolutely not. We want it included throughout the system, and we want it at the highest level of the system. So that's just a piece. It's diversity and inclusion. And the definition, affirming the uniqueness of and differences among persons, ideas, values, and ethnicities. So I hope you heard that a difference of ideas is also diversity and inclusion. Because nursing colleagues, we are some of the most stubborn people around our ideas. I think about it this way, therefore you should think about it this way. I'm afraid not. A diversity of ideas is incredibly important, especially to scholarship. I mean, science is totally based on a diversity of ideas, on testing those, it's called hypotheses. And so we've got to make sure that we, as nurses, as nurse scientists, as nurse clinicians, as nurse administrators, whatever the other part of that nurse is, or parts are, we've got to make sure that we are committed to diversity and inclusion. And it starts with that courageous conversation with self and with others. The final core value, there've been three so far: caring, integrity, diversity, and inclusion, which I consider to be a one instead of two, and then excellence. And excellence is co-creating and implementing transformative strategies with daring ingenuity. It's my favorite definition because it's summative of all the others. You cannot have excellence without diversity and inclusion. You cannot have excellence without integrity. You cannot have excellence without caring. And so co-creating, that means I do it with others. Dr. Peplau, who was the chair of my department when I was in my graduate program in nursing, said that an innovative, creative idea is where you get far enough from where you heard it for it to be yours. So, that's the understanding that sometimes there's nothing new in the world, that everybody, it's hard to find a really creative idea that only you put together. I beg your pardon. It was always, there was someone who had an influence on something that you were saying or doing, and you may have put it together in an interesting way, but the truth is we co-create all the time. So then it's not enough to co-create. You got to implement it. You got to make it happen. I'm sorry. It's once again, we're back to hallucinations, because a vision without action is a hallucination. So you've got to co-create, but then you've got to implement. And it's not just enough to implement anything. Transformative strategies. Do you understand the difference between transformation and change? Change. If I give you $1 and you give me back 4 quarters, you have given me change. Thank you very much. If I give you $1 and you give me back $5, we have transformed the situation. We are looking for transformational outcomes. Know in your research, as budding nurse scientists, you will be looking for transformative outcomes. And then, of course, you've got to do it with daring ingenuity. Think about that. Oh my goodness. The Raiders of the Lost Ark. Harrison Ford is at a cliff. There is a gulf before him. And he looks around, in that interesting way. This boulder, bigger than anything, is coming toward him. And he takes a step out onto nothing. And only then does the path appear. Colleagues, that's daring ingenuity. When you can step out on nothing, believing and knowing according to your research or your heart or whatever belief you have, spirituality, whatever belief system you have, when you can step out on nothing and know the path will appear, and that's daring ingenuity. So excellence, co-creating and implementing transformative strategies with daring ingenuity. That's what we're looking for. So now, to me, that's your frame. That's where you start. That's what you build on. That if you don't have that North Star, you have no idea where you're going. If you don't have your core values, you have no pathway for how to get there. So where would I take you from here? I thought I would take you to dreaming, because dreaming to me is a very important part, that you can't have a good idea unless you understand that you just don't dream at night. You also dream in the day, that you have permission to dream. You're going to be leaders, or you are leaders already. And you need to understand the importance of letting your mind do that work in the daytime. So I want to give you the example. I was the general secretary for the Royal College of Nursing in the UK, and Jack Arias said they had never had one quite like me. And I was invited to His Royal Highness's country home it's called Highgrove. His Royal Highness is Prince Charles, who is now King Charles. But at the time, he was just Prince Charles. And my organization, they were thrilled. I mean, they were over the moon. I'm from Kentucky. If you want to invite me somewhere, invite me to Buckingham Palace. That's in the center of London, St. James Park. The country home, I could do without it. I mean, I've been to the country. So I was not as excited, but my colleagues were so very pleased. They said, Bev, you got to go out, you got to get new clothes, it's a big thing. So I followed their suggestion, colleagues. I bought everything new from the top of my head to the bottom of my feet, my new shoes. And I get into a conveyance and it takes me out into the countryside, da, da, da. And it's raining, but of course it's England. It's going to be raining. And we get out there and a manservant opens my door and says, "Welcome, Dr. Malone, to His Royal Highness's home." And okay, so he takes me into the vestibule area and another one, it's a manservant every 5 steps. So in the vestibule, he says to me, "Would you like to see His Royal Highness's garden?" And he points to the outside, and as I said, it was raining. Colleagues, I look down at my shoes, they are brand new. There is no way Beverly Malone is gonna step out into anybody's muddy garden in my new shoes. So I very nicely, politely say, "No, thank you." And so he ushers me into the inner garden, the inner courtyard. And it is another garden. And there are 80 of us all together, colleagues. And they put in pods of 10. And then His Royal Highness comes around and spends time with each pod. And you have a minute to give your 2-minute right speech. So you got to cut it down. And then he's very kind, very courteous, and seemed interested. I gave my little 1 minute. I do it very well. And then he moved on to another pod so I could relax. And I started to look around his home. I have to admit, I was impressed. And it surprised me because for me, he was not as impressive. And he was such an entrepreneur. And he was so easily committed, I could see, strongly committed to homeopathic healthcare, to finding other ways than surgery to provide care for people. I mean, it was so in alignment with nursing. So my opinion of him was starting to change. And one of the men servants walked up to me and said, "Dr. Malone, His Royal Highness would like for you to dine with him this evening." I said, "Yes, I know that. That's why I'm here, along with 79 other people." I thought, I didn't say that last part. I just said, "Yes, I know that." He said, "Dr. Malone, I don't think you understand. He wants you to join him at his table." I was baffled. The only thing that I could say was, "Why?" And the manservant kind of looked at me and almost smiled. And he said, "He likes interesting people." Well, I figured I fit that category totally. I was the first African-American they ever had in the post. I was the first non-Brit. You had to be a Brit to occupy the post that I was in. You couldn't be Irish. You couldn't be Scottish. You could not even be Northern Irish, Scottish, Welsh. You couldn't even be that. You had to be a Brit to occupy the post. So, and of course, they'd never had an American. They'd never had an African-American or a person of color in the position. So if you add all that up, Doug Malone is interesting for sure. So I said, okay. So I went and joined him at his table, and I was sitting on his right-hand side, and the organizer of the event was on his left-hand side. So I had him for half the night. Camilla, his now Queen Consort Camilla, was sitting at another table. They were not married at the time. And so the dais is here and the other tables are out there. And I've got this prince, His whole Royal Highness, for an evening conversation. I've got 50% of it. And I'm a psych nurse. I'd better use it well. So I tried to think, what could I say to this man that he would remember? He would remember nursing. He would remember the RCN. I could not think of anything. I drew a blank. And so I just fell back on Nursing 101. Tell me about your day. Start in the morning. I have never had anyone refuse to do that. And he didn't. He said, "Well, I get up in the morning and I dress myself." And I thought to myself, I should give him a round of applause for that. And he said, "But I have to do my exercises first because I fell off a horse playing polo. And so I have a back injury that I have to do my back exercises." And then he went on to talk about his day. And just as I was as sure when I was looking at all the entrepreneurial things that he had done in terms of the way his home was outlined and designed, he talked about the many things that he worked on and the powerful healthcare things he worked on. And suddenly I knew what I needed to ask him. I said, where do you dream? He stopped talking. He looked me squarely in the face. He said, no one has ever asked me that. And I said to myself, yes, that's a psych nurse for you. But I didn't. I just smiled graciously. And he said, in my garden. And suddenly I knew, colleagues, that it was not the inner garden, the courtyard. It was that muddy garden that I had refused to dirty my shoes for. That's where he dreamed. But what I learned from that is we all need a place to dream. And that if you're serious about being a leader, if you're serious about being a nurse scientist, you need a place to dream. And I recommend it to you highly. So that's my dreaming, because you can't get into leadership without dreaming in some way. And then I wanted to talk to you very briefly and quickly about Mary Seacole and Florence Nightingale, two extraordinary leaders. You said, Bev, why did you say Mary first? Because usually it's Florence Nightingale and Mary Seacole. So I just flipped it a little bit. And there's a new book by Inez Tuck on Florence and Mary that I recommend to you strongly. There's also a book by Alexander Ziggy, or is it Ziggy Alexander? It's one of those colleagues, about Mary Seacole. But Mary was she was born in 1805, and Florence was born in 1820. So she's about 15 years older than Florence. Florence was 15 years older than Mary. And Mary was born of a Scottish father and a Jamaican mom. And so she was an entrepreneur unbelievably. Her mom was a doctress into health cures. So Mary came out knowing that she wanted to heal and help people. When the Crimean War started, she decided to go to Crimea and work. Florence was already there and had her core of nurses that she was working with, going to revolutionize the nursing profession. Mary knocked on Florence's door and said, can I work with you? I'm interested. I'm ready. I've worked with cholera patients. I've done this back. And so I have a resume here to show you that I'm ready to work. And Florence said, I'm sorry, I'm a little British here. And I'm upper class in addition to race. She didn't say this, of course, but that was the real message was, darling, you're so far below me, I would not touch you with a 10-foot pole. And so Mary just gathered herself up and went across to another part of Crimea and opened a hotel right across from the hospital there. And the British soldiers and other soldiers from other countries flooded to her because they got better, because they were healed. And in the press, she became a phenomenon in the British press back home. They have even erected a statue to Mary, a bust, first of all, now a statue. The statue is in Tommy's hospital. It's St. Thomas Hospital, but they call it Tommy's in England. And there's a full statue of her. And I was a part of helping that happen. And I'm so proud of that part of my life where I was able to advocate for a statue for Mary because she deserved it. So these two extraordinary women, one of color, both of the Victorian era, right? So men didn't think much of either one of them. And they both got a lot of criticism. But at the same time, they revolutionized the whole of healthcare, not just nursing, but of healthcare. And Florence, of course, did all this scientific ideology, wonderful stuff that now everybody uses in terms of, and do no harm. So I wanted to encourage you to know your history, that as you move forward, know to investigate your history. And we're creating history as we go along. At some point, someone would say, Bev Malone gave a presentation to an extraordinary group of nurses and community people on November is it the 10th or the 11th, huh? 10th? And so you'll be part of history. I'll be part of it. We are building it as we go. The last thing, the other person I wanted to speak briefly to you about, no, I need to stop, don't I? is Hattie Bissett, and then I will stop. Hattie Bissett was my mentor, and she ran the Minority Fellowship Program for the American Nurses Association for about 15 or 20 years. She was one of my primary mentors. She was a bane to most of our lives. There were only about 8 or 9 doctorally prepared nurses of color when she started. When she finished the program, there were 200. And it was not just African Americans, but it was Native. She had the first Native American PhD, Dr. Jenny Joe, Latinx, doctoral prepared nurses, Asian Pacific prepared nurses. I mean, amazing work she did. And her name is Dr. Hattie Bissett. And I just want to put her name in the air. So at this point, let me stop here because obviously Bev Malone can talk. And I promised you that I would give us some time. So let me end here, Jackie.
Thank you so much, Dr. Malone. We can listen to you talk as long as you would like to talk. So it is truly a blessing to us all. We'll open it up for questions to the audience. I see Tonda has opened up her mic. You have a question, Tonda?
I'm sorry.
Oh, I thought you had gone off mute to ask a question.
Oh, no, sorry.
Okay,
Good,
so
wonderful presentation, though. I always love hearing them talk.
we have a hand raised from Melody. So we'll start there. You can unmute yourself. Oh, there you go.
Hi, I'm Melody. I'm at work today, actually, and they let me sneak away a little bit to watch this. So thank you so much for that wonderful presentation. And, I have so much respect because you speak so well about something I'm really passionate about. And I love how you talked about being visionary and a dreamer, because I feel like that really connects with me. I do have a couple of, frustrations in nursing works. I would say one of them is learning how to teach other people when you still feel your weaknesses come to surface as you're working. Like, you see your own strengths, but you also see areas where you're not as confident teaching others, or you just don't feel like you're good enough to teach other people yet. But it in nursing, we all help each other out. We all put in to train others. So what is your advice on gaining that confidence and feeling confident?
Yeah. Well, my hunch is that really good nurses, great nurses, underestimate themselves. And that I've had the imposter syndrome when I went to college. I thought somebody was going to come and tap me on the shoulder and say, you really don't belong here. And so I think that that's a big possibility. But one of the things that I recommend strongly is mentoring. That sometimes it's your mentor who helps you understand that I will believe in you until you can get there. And so I've had people where I said, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what to do. I'm not as clear that I can do this. I mentioned Peplau. When I was defending my master's thesis, she said to me, what if I tell you I will not pass you, accept your thesis, unless you commit to going back and getting your doctorate? And I was like, oh my goodness, I don't think I can do that. And my response to her was, that it's really inappropriate for you to mention that at such a stressful time for me to have to have Peplau. I need some time to think about it. But I never forgot that Peplau thought Bev Malone could get a doctorate. And it became part of my agenda. So sometimes when we don't know, we don't have the confidence in ourselves, we need supportive people around us who can say, Melody, you've got what it takes. And you don't know everything. Guess what? None of us know everything, but you know this. And you have so much to offer others. And teaching others is not about being perfect. It's about acknowledging what you know and acknowledging what you don't know, and where your strengths are and where you're not as strong. So I think somehow we got the idea as teachers, maybe because we immortalize them to some degree, that they have to have it all right. They have to have it all perfect. They have to know it from top to bottom. No, none of us do. When you understand the human condition, Melody, you'll know that humility that you have is lovely. Don't let it become an obstacle around hanging, a millstone hanging around your neck just because you're humble. I mean, come on. There are times for humility, and there are times to say, I have been given so much. I have to turn around and give some of it back. Look where you are. Girlfriend, you have the perfect setting for saying, have you noticed how real I am? I'm a scientist, but I'm also clinically based. I have the best of both worlds. You need to talk yourself up, and you need colleagues around you, people around you who affirm your greatness. Those are called mentors. Mentors can say, Melody, if you keep going in the direction you're going, you will hit a wall. Feel those knots on your head? That's where you hit the wall before. Move over to your right, turn the knob, and walk through the door. A mentor can distinguish between a wall and a door. You need more mentors in your life, Melody.
Yeah, I have felt that way actually. I've had some very disappointing ones, unfortunately, in the past that, have been pretty hurtful. So I'm trying to like move past them and find other people that like truly support me and are not trying to, do something else. Yeah.
Sometimes people will compete with you. When there's a little streak of greatness in you, it brings out the competitive edge in others. Not everybody, but even people who love you will compete with you sometimes. So you have to kind of get ready for it. It's almost like, oh, okay, so they're competing with me. That means I'm doing something right. You have to take it in that way and not take it that they're trying to harm me or hurt me in some kind of way. And they may be. There is a saying about you knew it was a snake when you picked it up. I won't go into that, but there are times when people are trying to hurt you. I will not take that away. But it doesn't mean that you have to allow it to happen. And it doesn't mean that you can't get sometimes good things from people, even people who are not your good friends. You can pull some things out from them that you can learn.
Yeah, I'll try that. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, we have Dr. Larson. Her hand is up.
So, Dr. Malone, I'm going to ask a tough question. I just finished reading White Fragility. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it talks about white folks' defensiveness and lack of understanding about the structural things that have happened over the last, decades that make it impossible for us to really understand what the stresses that people of color are on. Sort of like the default is white culture. And the book was very, very good for me and made me realize that we have a lot to learn. And I wondered if you had any thoughts. You probably haven't read the book, although it would be good for people of color and white folks to read. Any thoughts about how to make the conversations about race among nurses and other professionals more honest and not so defensive?
Well, first of all, I think that I have not read the book, so I need to put that on the table. If I don't have to think of something, Elaine, I might not think of it, right? White people have not had to think about that, Black people. I mean, it's not like necessarily, it's a systems issue. There is structural racism that's built into the system from days of slavery and probably before days of slavery, but nevertheless, less than, somebody's got to be less than. And people of color have been identified as less than. And in the States, it took on the form of slavery, and it's slavery other places too. So I give people a little bit of room on believing that they can understand what I'm talking about. And when I talk about racism, because I go back to teaching, you grew up in a family, didn't you? Yeah, oh yeah, we grew up in a family. Well, did you notice there might be someone who was more valued than you were in the family? Or were you the special one in the family? And what happened with that? So usually in our family structures, there are the seeds of inequality, inequity, there's enough for people to hold on to if they pay attention to it and label it under the right categories. And that allows us to have a conversation. So you may never, because you're white and I'm Black, you may never experience what it's like to be Black in America, but you may have experienced what it's like to be the strange one in your family, the more academic one in your family, the one who people said, oh, she'll never marry anybody because she's so brilliant, nobody will want to deal with her. I don't know, it's all of those things that happen to people in their families that really provide a bridge of conversation, I believe, for us to have this courageous conversation with self and others. So I have a lot of hope. And, I talked about hope as part of caring. I have hope for those conversations. And I've been able to work with, I remember I went to Wisconsin, Eau Claire, Wisconsin, and to a faculty who wanted to talk about racism. There was no one of color at all on the faculty, but they wanted to talk about color and racism. And the way that I worked with them was to have them talk about their family backgrounds. And suddenly it was not just white people. Oh my goodness, there was someone from Italian descent. There was someone from Irish descent. There was someone from Nordic descent. And there were differences and prejudices about those different descents and their backgrounds that they had never talked about, which is basically the conversation, a template for the conversation we can have around differences. So that's how I look at it. But thank you for the question.
Yeah. We have a question in the chat from Jillian Dory. I hope I'm saying your name correctly. Jillian says, thank you so much for this very inspiring talk. I'm considering pursuing a PhD in nursing, but I'm older, almost 50. That's not older, just to say. Like some institutions have indicated that I'm not the ideal student, but this feels like a dream of mine. Any advice or words of wisdom?
Jung, Jung, the opposite of Freud, Jungian theory, he says life begins at 70. And I've always thought that was pretty neat, even when I was 20. So I think, almost 50, you're still in your prime. You've got lots of room, and go get that PhD. And you will have many more years to contribute. And it's not about how many years you have to contribute, it's about what you do with the years you have. Some people may live another 50 years and do nothing. Other people may live another 10 years and do amazing, miraculous things. So don't cut yourself short at all. You don't know if it's in your heart, and it sounds like it's something that's already been teasing you, working on you. I always believe in that inner feeling when you know you're about to do something different. I remember when I was thinking about going international, and I was working for Dr. Shalala in the Department of Health and Human Services. And I was starting to go to Sweden and to Switzerland. And I was, oh my goodness, I found heaven. I was in the World Health Organization, and I was meeting all of these worldwide figures. So I wanted to be in nursing at an international level, not in a hospital, as a staff nurse, I mean, at an international level. I wanted some power when I got to that international level. And so I wanted a high position. And I remember I asked Dr. Shalala if she would appoint me to the post in Switzerland. And she said she would think about it. Well, she appointed her assistant to that post. And it broke my heart. I mean, it was like, that was going to be my entree into the international world. And I was almost 50. So I was thinking, I don't have a lot of options. I can't just say I'm just going to go off and work in England as a staff nurse. I can't do that anymore. So lo and behold, my mentor, Dr. Hattie Bassett, called me and said, do you know Christine Hancock? And I said, yeah, sure. I used to be president of ANA. She was the CEO for the Royal College of Nursing, general secretary. So she said, well, she's thinking of retiring. Call her up and see if they would hire an American. You. I said, but that doesn't make any, she said, call her. Sometimes your mentor tells you to do things and you just do it. So I called Christine up, and Christine, being totally British. Said absolutely not. They would never hire an American. We don't hire we don't hire Irish, Scottish, Welsh. Only Brits gets hired into this post. So when I got off the phone with Christine, I thought, what a wonderful opportunity. If I get the post, they'll say, Bev Malone got that position. If I don't get the post, they'll say, of course she didn't. They only hire Brits. So there was nothing to lose. So what I'm telling you, colleague, is there is nothing to lose. Go for your PhD, because obviously they did hire me. Amazingly so. It shocked everybody that they hired me. And let me say a little bit more of that story. Yeah, I got about a few minutes. So I put my name in for the position, and I'm working at DC and Bill Clinton's administration, Health and Human Services, and the entire offices say, this is the my fairy tale to go to England, right? And as the general secretary, it's a fairy tale application. So everybody started pitching in, and they would read it and change it. And I mean, it was an entire organizational effort, just my application. So of course it was highlighted, it was noted, and the search firm said, oh, we want to interview you. And so they came over to DC to interview me. And I said, I don't believe I'm a serious candidate. And they said, oh, but you are. I said, not really. I said, you just didn't have enough Black people in England, and you needed a quota of Black folks. So you came over to interview me to meet your quota. He said, Dr. Malone, no, if you're a good candidate. I said, I don't buy it. And then I found out he had a girlfriend in Canada. The search firm leader did. And so obviously he went to Canada first to see her and used me as an excuse to get across the water. And so I told him, he said, no, Dr. Malone, you're a good candidate. So it turned out that they invited me over for an interview to England. And in January of that year, I went over, 2001, and I opened up the paper, the Times. It's like the New York Times, but it's the Times, London Times. And it said, an American causes a row. And I wondered who they were talking about. And as I read down, it said, oh, Beverly Malone was the American that was causing trouble, that I had caused someone to have a heart attack, that I was causing people to leave the organization in droves, people who had been with the organization for generations. So I was amazed. I had not even, this was my first time stepping foot in the country, and I was causing a row. And my interview was later that day. So I went into the interview understanding why these people could not hire me. I was causing trouble just by showing up. And especially the poor guy who had a heart attack because he wasn't interviewed. So I gave the best, everybody on this call, you would have loved it. It was the best interview of my life. I was like a drunk person on a Ferris wheel who fell off. I felt no pain. There's a thing in the Bible that says that when you leave someplace that you're unwelcome, you just shake the dust off your feet. And that's what I did. I just shook the dust off my feet, and I went on back to my hotel and started packing. And in 15 minutes, they called me and said, we're offering you the position. And I said, you are? And they said, but you can't tell anybody that we're offering you the position except your family, because if any of the Brits hear that we offered it to you and you turned it down, no one will touch the position. Because an American turned it down. So I said, yeah, I'll check with my family and find out if they think I should do this. And of course, my family, my daughter and my son were in college, and they were thanking God that I was finally leaving the country. And I was on them so hard. So everybody was very excited. So I accepted the post. Now I say all that to say, isn't it interesting how things come around for you that you didn't know was even going to be there? I encourage each of you to pursue your dreams. And don't downplay yourself. Have that courageous conversation about how it's not bad to say, I'm pretty wonderful. You don't do it all by yourself. You've got great people around you. Maybe you had to come up the rough side of the mountain, but hey, you're at a different place and you made it through. And you have so much to offer yourself and others.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Malone. It's been wonderful and inspirational and just a joy and pleasure to have you here and talk to us and for us to receive all your words of wisdom. I think we have a couple minutes if there's any last parting words from anyone in the audience. Everyone is saying thank you for a wonderful talk. You know, I think you have been truly inspirational to this to Jillian. She's chatting with people in the meeting about applying to PhD programs. So I think you have, you know, spurred her into action. So this is what we love to see.
Jackie, I want to close it with, if I've got some time, you know, I could always say.
Yes, yes.
Okay, there are 3 stressors, colleagues, that are always with you. And I share this every time I go out. And that is inevitable stress. That means it's coming at you whether you like it or not. You have to remember that. It's not about you. It's inevitable. And it's aging, illness, and death. And in nursing, we know just enough to keep us anxious about most things. So aging, I've made an effort in terms of trying to stay as young as, at least to look as young as possible as I can. But I tell you, I am aging. Every birthday reminds me that it's another year. And illness, you know, if you were never ill a day in your life, you died first. That was your accomplishment. You died before you got sick. And I used to say taxes, but I understand some people don't pay taxes. And then there's death. And we in nursing, we do know about death as part of life. So that's an inevitable stressor. The second stressor is called imposed. That means someone had the audacity to give it to you, and you had the audacity to accept it. Imposed stress is where people give you stress. In my life, my children have excelled in giving me stress. And I understand that there are some people so close to you that you're going to suck it up, the stress, just because of your caring for them. The colleagues, doesn't mean you have to suck up everybody's stress. It doesn't mean there are some people who know that they can dump their stress on you and you will accept it. I have a test for it. I look at it, it does not look like Beverly Malone stress. I taste it, doesn't taste like Beverly Malone stress. I smell it, doesn't smell like Beverly Malone stress. I put it back in the box, wrap it back up, send it back, wrong address. If we could send back stress that did not belong to us, I know we will be healthier. And the third stressor is called chosen. It's not enough that you have inevitable. It's not enough that people impose it. Oh, no. We go out and we choose our stress. Very conscious about what you're choosing. And real, so if you can choose it, you can choose not to have it also. So those 3 stressors, they don't take turns. Oh, I'm inevitable, so I'm going to work while the other 2 would be quiet. No, they're happening all at the same time. It is so critically important that you manage your stress. Thanks, Jackie.
Oh, thank you so much, Dr. Malone. And, you know, thank you everyone for joining us. We do have an evaluation in the chat below, if you would be so kind, but it has been absolutely wonderful to talk with you and have this conversation and to hear all of your words of wisdom. Thank you. Again, Dr. Malone.
Jackie,
And thank you all for coming.
Yep.
Have a great day.
You guys, thank you.
Bye.